Charlie Changes into a Chicken by Sam Copeland. Read by Rhashan Stone. Chapter 1. This is Charles McGuffin. You can't see him, though. It's just my voice. And I'm not actually Charlie. I'm just reading the book. Of course. If you hadn't figured that out, this book will be way too difficult for you, and you should probably go and read The Really Simple Book of Dead Easy Stories for Total Numpty Heads instead. Charles McGuffin was just like you and me. Well, he wasn't like me because I'm big and hairy, and Charles is small and pretty smooth. So he's just like you. Except he's a boy. So if any girls are reading this, he's different because he has a you-know-what. So Charles is like some of you. Except for one majorly huge, massive difference. He can change into animals. As in, 1 minute he's a normal boy, the next minute he's a wolf, or an armadillo, or a danger noodle, which, as everyone knows, is the actual scientific name for a snake. Okay, so that probably means Charles is absolutely nothing like any of you because nobody else can change into animals. I think it's probably best if we start this book again, don't you? Just pretend you didn't hear this bit, okay? Chapter 1. Again. This is Charles McGuffin. It isn't actually him. It's just my voice. Of course. Charles McGuffin is absolutely nothing like you or me. He is totally, completely different. Charles is unique because Charles can transform into animals, like danger noodles. Now Charlie, footnote. Although he's called Charles, everybody calls him Charlie for short, which is pretty silly because Charlie actually has the same number of letters as Charles. End footnote. Oh, P.S. This is called a footnote. It's called a footnote because when a clever person from ancient Greece thought of something really important and absolutely had to write it down so they didn't forget it, but didn't have any paper to write it on, they used to write it on their foot. You know what? I'm not too sure about that fact. Don't trust me on that one. Right, anyway, where were we? Yes. Charlie was a pretty normal boy until about 3 weeks after his 9th birthday. He'd just come back from visiting his older brother, Smooth Move, at the hospital for the zillionth time. Smooth Move was quite ill and had been in hospital for ages and ages. This was really annoying because Charlie was convinced he could now beat his brother at FIFA on the PS4 and wanted to prove it. Also, the den in the garden needed mending, and Charlie couldn't do it by himself. And sometimes Charlie just wanted his brother back, so he had someone to play hide-and-seek with. Playing hide-and-seek by yourself isn't much fun. Charlie had tried. If you're very clever, you might have guessed that Charlie's brother isn't actually called Smooth Move, but woe betide you if you were to call him anything else. It's another footnote. You're probably wondering what woe betide means. Well, only parents and teachers are allowed to say woe betide you. It's the law. But if you want some fun, next time a teacher or parent says woe betide you, ask them what it means. What it means exactly. You'll probably see steam coming out of their ears, and you'll get into more trouble, but it'll be worth it. End of footnote. Charlie's brother's actual name was Henry, but after a lifetime of being called Horrid Henry, he would punch anybody right on the nose if they called him by his real name. He was 12 years old, sick of hospital, and could still easily beat Charlie at FIFA, no matter what Charlie said. And he might have a girlfriend, but he would punch you on the nose if you said, "Smooth Move has a girlfriend." In fact, you do well to come away from any conversation with Charlie's brother without getting punched on the nose for one reason or another. As soon as Charlie and his mum and dad got home from visiting Smooth Move, Charlie ran straight upstairs to his bedroom. He dived into his bed, under his duvet, and tried not to think about the big scan that his brother had just been telling him about. After a while, he wiped his eyes and propped the duvet up with a tennis racket to turn his bed into a tent. Once the tent was steady and stopped collapsing, he switched on his torch and began reading his favorite book. Charlie's favourite book was about volcanoes. It had pictures of massive explosions and orangey red lava, and he liked to imagine he was escaping certain death by sliding down the volcano, surfing lava and dodging explosions. The sound of his parents arguing downstairs rumbled through the house, low like thunder. Charlie closed his book. He couldn't concentrate. Darkness had fallen outside, and the street light outside Charlie's window was making uncanny shadows on his bedroom wall. The silhouettes of the tree branches looked a little too much like long, clutching witches' fingers for Charlie's liking, so, quick as a flash, he sprang out of bed and pulled his curtains together. It was there and then that it first happened. It began with a twitching in his eye. Charlie froze to the spot, feeling his eyelid blink manically. His eye had twitched before when he'd been tired, but this felt different somehow. It felt like somebody had just plugged him into a wall socket. The twitching spread to his other eye, and both eyes were blinking and twitching. A feeling burst through the whole of his body, like he'd just been shot through an electrical wire, like he was the electricity. Every part of his body fizzed and hummed. The fizzing and humming became stronger until he felt he was on fire, but a fire inside a never-ending tube, squeezed and vibrating. His skin felt extraordinary, alive. He looked at his arm and, with some considerable alarm, saw that hair was sprouting out of every part of his skin. Weirdly, the room was growing larger too. But no, Charlie realized, the room wasn't growing larger. It was him who was shrinking. Smaller and smaller, he shrank, the room growing ever larger around him. And his body, Charlie hardly dared look, his body was transforming. Completely. Extra legs were growing out of him, which is every bit as gross as you could imagine. And finally, he felt new eyes emerging out of his head, which was possibly even grosser than the new legs. Charlie recognized almost immediately that he was turning into a spider. And how did Charlie know this? He looked at the evidence. Evidence 1. Charlie was now tiny. Admittedly, he hadn't been that huge before he changed, but he could see a dried apricot under his bed that he'd been saving for a rainy day, and he was now about the same size as the apricot. And normal 9-year-old boys usually aren't the size of dried apricots. Evidence 2. Charlie counted his legs, and he had 8 of them, which is about 6 too many legs for a human, but just the right number for a spider. Evidence 3. He was completely covered in short brown hair. Now, being covered in hair didn't necessarily stop someone from being human. Take Charlie's Uncle Pete, for instance. Uncle Pete had taken Charlie swimming once, and when he took off his t-shirt, he had a back so covered in thick, tufty hair, a gorilla would have been jealous. All the other children had stopped and stared, wide-eyed and jaws agape, as Uncle Pete stepped into the pool, back hair fluttering in the breeze. Charlie had tried to forget this ever happened, but the more he tried to forget Uncle Pete's hairy back, the more it stayed in his brain. Because brains are annoying like that. Evidence 4. Charlie was able to look nearly all the way behind himself without even turning round. He reached up with one of his new, long, spindly black legs and carefully counted his eyes. There were 8. 8 legs? 8 eyes? Very suspicious. So Charlie looked at all the suspicious evidence and added small plus hairy plus 8 spindly black legs plus 8 eyes together and got spider as the answer, because it is a well-known fact that spiders are hairy.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?